Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking, and let's all be honest, when we saw the post-credit scenes setting up this game, we all had one thought.
You're gonna be spectacular.
Did it live up to the expectations?
No!
Let's find out, as this time I'm looking at Marvel's Spider-Man 2, developed by Insomniac Games and released in October of 2023. This hotly anticipated sequel was seen by Insomniac as the Empire Strikes Back to the first game's A New Hope, and I guess Miles Morales is like Solo or something.
No! Solo!
Anyway, this game is supposed to be darker and more serious than the first, because, you know, the first one was filled with happy good vibes, like being betrayed by one of your role models, gang warfare, being betrayed by your mentor, inspiration, and role model, failing to prevent a lethal infectious virus from infecting the city, and the death of a beloved family member. While everyone was already excited for the impending arrival of Venom, Insomniac didn't stop there, as their trailer showed off other newly debuting villains like Kraven the Hunter, the Lizard, and Sandman, while also promising to continue the story of both Peter and Miles without one getting any special treatment over the other. Did they deliver on all their promises and surpass the quality of the original? Let's find out and give it everything we've got! After a cold open with Norman Osborn and his son Harry, we pick up with Miles Morales struggling to write his college application as his teacher, Peter Parker, arrives, looking 10 years younger than his students. Seriously, who decided that Peter needed to look 12 in these games? He's supposed to be 25. I'm under 25 and I look older than him. And why is his neck so thick?
The fuck we got going on here? This bug-ass neck, the hard-body-ass neck, this erect-ass neck.
Anyway, Peter starts talking about physics when New York finds itself in the middle of a Darude song. The two Spider-Men thwip up to the rooftop to see that Flint Marko, aka Sandman, is on the attack. Aw, those poor New Yorkers, they're getting their accuracy lowered! They swing into action, showing off the rendering power of the PS5 as they speed through the city. Not only that, but they're in the newly expanded portion of the map, which adds Queens, Brooklyn, and Astoria. The fight against Sandman doesn't start off so great, as Peter gets yeetered into a building and swarmed with mini Markos, so the inspiration he drew from Otto Octavius comes in clutch. This is the introduction of combat abilities, powerful moves that recharge over time. The prompts are constantly shown on screen as a way to make combat faster, taking away the gadget menu from before. They get the upper hand with a combination of water and electricity and send Sandman to the beach, forcing Peter to bust out his prototype web wings to cross the gap and get to him. The web wings are like Batman's gliding, but if Batman refused to obey any laws of physics ever. Speaking of physics, that's exactly what they use to defeat Mr. Sandman, as Miles uses the lightning storm to supercharge Peter's spider arms, turning Sandman into Fulgurite Man. Flint gives a vague warning about someone coming to them, and it's followed by a flashback to a man named Kraven setting his sights on New York after a successful hunt. I wonder if there's any connection. Pete works to restore the Friendly Neighborhood app with help from some friends, and then stops some guys trying to rob a gun club while talking about how gun clubs are bad. Alright, I know this is the writers talking through Pete, but in what world would Spider-Man be against establishments that teach safe gun handling and help people protect themselves? He knows better than anyone that crime is a constant in this city, so surely it's to the benefit of the average New Yorker to be armed and dangerous. Speaking of armed and dangerous, Spider-Man once again has gadgets at his disposal. His standard web shooters, an upshot that shoots enemies up, a web grabber that grabs enemies with webs, and a concussion burst that stuns enemies. Oh, and a ricochet web that ricochets webs between enemies. He isn't very creative with these gadget names. As Control switches to Miles and he basically repeats what we just saw, I think it's funny that this game, compared to a Star Wars movie, opened with a whole section of New York getting coated in sand.
I don't like sand.
Speaking of the unwanted new star on HGTV, Miles finds one of Sandman's mind crystals, a piece of his shattered psyche, with many more scattered across New York. This is the first of the few side missions in the game. Finding them all fills in more of Marco's character and what led him to going mad and attacking the city. Miles rescues beloved newsman J. Jonah Jameson and brings him to a hospital, where Pete gets a phone call from the principal, because from her perspective, he abandoned a classroom full of students during a citywide emergency. And instead of coming up with some lie like he and Miles got separated and he was focused on keeping him safe, he just stands there like a punk bitch and gets fired. Miles doesn't even try to help, he just watches on with Genki and Haley.
The bitch got to drop on us, my back is against the wall, this is not a test, it's the real deal, help me! Help me!
Now that the open world is well, open, I can start really complaining. The randomly generated crimes are back, but they aren't nearly as good. They're a lot less involved, and there isn't as much variety. The side activities are downgraded too. They're no longer marked on your map for you. You have to find them all yourself by exploring the city. Why would you downgrade your quality of life mechanics? Sure, it holds your hand less, but most of these side activities aren't even worth the effort of finding them. Like this new one where you just take photos of random people. At least the Sandman one has kind of a sweet ending where you give the crystals to Flint's daughter since he only acted out to protect her and is actually about a notable supervillain. Anyway, Pete switches out of his Sandy suit, introducing us to suit styles. Each suit now comes with 4 different color schemes, and still there aren't any better than the default one. Miles has a pretty good one in honor of Chadwick Boseman though. For some reason, Pete switched out of his suit just to take it off and meet with his Aunt May. Oh, wait, that's MJ? Why does she look 20 years older than she did in the first game? And about 30 years older than Pete? What sins have we committed that have prevented us from getting this MJ? Actually, scratch that. Instead of getting that MJ, can I just trade her in for Silver Sable? Then at least I have another crime-fighting companion. MJ is moving her unsold Symkaria books, because the excuse for getting Peter out of Miles Morales was pointless, into Aunt May's old house, which is now where Pete is living. She finds an old photo album, causing Peter to reflect on May's lesson about balance, spelling out this game's message before it even had a chance to express it. Pete hears a scream and rushes outside to see his old friend Harry Osborn, now in remission from the disease he was infected with. MJ rides off to work, leaving Harry and Pete to bike their way to their old high school, with some random GTA controls. We're then treated to a flashback sequence of Pete and Harry breaking into the school as kids to retrieve a flash drive, where Harry pulls off a move that immediately endeared me to him.
What's that, huh?
I just want to tell you how I'm feeling.
Damn it, you're in the office.
Make you understand. Never gonna give you up. Never gonna let you down. Okay, gotta go.
The good times don't last though, as Norman arrives to tell Harry that his mother has died. Back in the present, Harry invites Pete to join him as a co-founder of the newly launched Emily May Foundation, named after his mom and Pete's aunt, with the mission of healing the world. The world's gonna need some healing soon, it seems, as Kraven has arrived in New York and has his eyes set on the prison transfer of Scorpion and Mr. Negative. Let's see how this goes.
And now they got all that, plus Scorpion and Lee.
You know, somehow, that still went better than I expected. The next step on the agenda after that spectacular spider show is for Miles to meet up with his uncle Aaron, who tells him not to obsess over Martin Lee for his own good. He also wants Miles' help clearing up Prowler tech he left across the city, setting up a side mission. It also introduces suit tech upgrades as you gather parts to upgrade your health, damage, focus abilities, and traversal skills. Once Miles finds all the stashes, he's led to a secret one where he met Aaron earlier, finding a blueprint of his apartment. He rushes to his Puerto Rican home with a Cuban flag in it, thinking the Prowler is back, just to be met with the obvious revelation that Aaron moved into the same apartment building. Yeah, I'd love to see what Peter's up to right about now, but no, Miles has to attend a club fair at his school. Fortunately, a teacher goes missing, so Miles suits up to track her down, having to take a phone interview with a representative of a program he really wants to get into. Now, if Miles was really a Spider-Man, his responsibilities as a hero would compromise his chances of getting in as a way to demonstrate the personal sacrifices one has to make to be a hero. But no, the guy just gives Miles a second chance right away because he could tell he was busy. Alright then. Once the teacher is safe, a group of side missions open up at Brooklyn Vision's Academy, and they're all a huge waste of the Great Electric Spider's time.
The Great Electric Spider.
Like helping this dumb fuck with his overly complicated homecoming proposal, or rescuing the school mascot, and taking photos of the campus? Fucking weak! While Miles joins the LWO, Peter visits Harry at the newly opened Emily May Foundation, ostentatiously arranged by former mayor Norman Osborn, complete with a whole particle accelerator. I've seen the Flash, I know what kind of damage that thing can do. It's here where Peter is reintroduced to Dr. Kurt Connors, and I'd like to take this time to apologize for mistakenly saying the lizard didn't exist in this universe at the time of the first game. There's collectible dialogue that mentions that he's been cured of his excess scale disorder. Harry shows Peter his potential new office, and he agrees to join the Foundation after Harry talks about honoring his late mother by using his wealth to heal the world. If you haven't figured it out already, we're going to be hearing that phrase a lot.
I'm here to tell you right now,
We don't care.
But this world has so many problems, and some only a Spider-Man can solve. If he is not too busy finishing Emily May Foundation experiments because all these advanced researchers can't get off their lazy asses and do it themselves. First, there's a missing grandpa in Central Park. This sounds like a job for Spider-Man!
I propose to my wife here, right here, where we sit. You ever been in love, Spider-Man?
Yeah, I have.
It's beautiful. Nothing more beautiful. I know I'm fading. It's scary as hell. Thought I'd be ready, but nothing gets you ready. Nothing. When I'm here, it's like she is too. I was so nervous that day, Spider-Man. Almost didn't even ask. It's like I blinked. And she's gone.
Ninja Brian, are you crying?
Oh, come on, now I'm sad. I can't make jokes when I'm sad. Quick, we need something else. Ooh, I know! Trapped workers in a crumbling building. Spider-Bot helps rescue the workers and discovers that this is the work of the Cult of the Flame, and it seems they aren't only on Spider-Man's radar.
Yuri?
Lowlifes call me Wraith.
Oh yeah, you know that DLC I didn't cover in the first one? Well, let me give you a quick summary. Black Cat was caught in between a gang war started by Hammerhead and dragged Peter into it while Hammerhead steals a band disabled international equipment to enhance him and his gang, ultimately bringing about the return of Silver Sable to help defeat the steel-plated Fivehead while Yuri quits the force, disenfranchised with the restrictions of the law, and begins killing all the guilty people she failed to put away through proper means. All caught up? Good. Now, she's generic vigilante number 616 as a part of the Flame side mission, the longest running side mission in the game. We'll be checking in with her as the missions come up. But for now, Pete tracks the hunters to a spot under a bridge where Insomniac shows us that littering is virtuous as it helps Spider-Man discover his enemy's hidden base. A drone leads Peter to another blind in the city which reveals a hunter base in a food market, serving as a refresher course on this game's way too easy stealth gameplay. Now made even easier by the addition of a web line that you can create basically anywhere and eventually perform dual takedowns on. Pete discovers Kraven the Hunter's name and finds out that he's been researching Mr. Negative and Scorpion. He also theorizes Kraven might be trying to add their powers to his arsenal, but that never happens because I guess that would just be too cool. After fighting off some robo-dogs, as you do, Pete finds files on Vulture, Black Cat, Mr. Negative, and Scorpion. And a little more, too.
Have a nice trip. Is this the best you can do? They said you were a killer. Imagine my disappointment.
Oh, you mean the hunter is hunting?
I am shocked and appalled.
Side note, who on the diverse and inclusive team at Insomniac decided to give Kraven the Hunter the generic modern hipster haircut? Since Peter was just having too much fun, I guess, he tasks Miles with telling Felicia she's in danger. I call BS on her not trusting Pete if he told her she's in danger. Why would she trust a complete stranger over someone she knows cares about her? Could it possibly be because these writers knew no other way to balance having two Spider-Men? No, it couldn't possibly be that. Oh, would you look at that? Felicia's already in danger, so all that talk about not believing Pete and having to send Miles was utterly pointless. Well, Felicia's always been a foolhardy one, so we should probably make sure she's okay anyway. Unless you want to take down hunter blinds around the city to weaken Kraven's operations and learn more about his family, I'm fine with that.
Okay. There's some instruction manual for a Wanda Watoon.
Oh, that can't be good. If I had a nickel for every recent adaptation of Spider-Man where shit is stirred up with Doctor Strange magic, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's strange that it's happened twice. And what's with all the tassels and shit on her gear? Is she trying to be the 3rd member of the Young Bucks? Why does every character look worse than they did before? Anyway, it turns out that Felicia only stole the wand of WandaVision so she could escape to her girlfriend in Paris. So, let me get this straight. Black Cat gets relegated to DLC in the first game and uses Doctor Strange magic to teleport out of this one 5 minutes after she shows up so the common love interest of Peter Parker can save her girlfriend? Roll the clip.
Put a chicken in and make her name it gay!
And for further proof that this entire mission was one big, diverse, steaming waste of time, the wand of WarioWare immediately disappears. Thanks for nothing, I guess. Au revoir, Felicia! The next stop on the agenda is heading to Coney Island to check out Haley's art display and Mysterio's new attraction, the Mysterium. Jake Gyllenhaal this guy is not, though his illusion tech is still pretty advanced. And really the biggest crime he commits is allowing Miles to be a DJ. Things soon start to go wrong and Miles has to fight his way out of the Mysterium, getting it shut down for maintenance until Quentin and his team can get to the core of the issue. This is yet another side mission, and one that really falls short of its potential. It's just a bunch of combat challenges. That's what you use a master illusionist for? Combat challenges? And the real kicker is that this isn't even a big trick by Mysterio, it's his fucking help manipulating him and his tech to steal credit card information. At least the final boss fight with Mysterio looks cool. It doesn't have any unique gameplay or anything, but it looks nice. Anyway, Miles and Genki run into Peter, MJ, and Harry and switch perspectives as the Geek Squad paint the island red. There's actually a lot of rides you can go on, and it does a great job making the three feel like old friends. There's also this blonde girl they keep running into that I was 100% expecting to be Gwen Stacy, but she isn't. Or at least if she is, it's not revealed in this game. Their penultimate stop is the test of strength. Sorry, Harry, but I don't see how you're beating these spider guns! Show off. Harry goes off to woo some unicorns or something while Peter and MJ ride the Ferris wheel, where MJ complains about not being able to write a story featured on the front page of the Daily Bugle. Now, I may be wrong, but MJ has a personal link with Spider-Man, yes? What is stopping her from having the first ever interview with the human spider himself and submitting that story? JJJ loves Spider-Man stories, surely that's a layup, right? But they don't pay me to be a reporter. Hell, I don't even get paid to make these videos. But fuck it, we ball. The hunters arrive to capture Tombstone, who is now reformed and working as a mechanic at the fair, because Peter can never have one quiet night in his goddamn life. Side note, I love how he'll keep on the hat and glasses you chose as you ride all the rides, but I hate that it's not a permanently unlocked costume. Also, this is where I got the first of a few weird cutscene glitches. In this one, the dialogue and certain sound effects just didn't play. It really hits the fan when the roller coaster starts crumbling. Oh man, things are looking really bad. If only there was another fucking Spider-Man who could help Pete out here. That's not exactly what I had in mind, but it's better than being a spider cake, so I'll spider take it. They meet on a nearby rooftop so Harry can explain that the weird gooey black tentacles are the cure to his disease, as it's some sort of self-learning exosuit, as he puts it. They then head to the Emily May Foundation and spend all night testing out Harry's newfound powers. When Pete wakes up the next morning, he's informed that Dr. Connors is missing. Once he steps outside, a strange signal attracts his attention, and it's a spider bot dressed like Spider-Man 2099. You know, that character no one gave a shit about until they made him a Latino man. There are customized spider bots hidden all over New York City, and you have to find all of them by yourself, and trust me, the reward is not worth it.
Bro, what the hell is happening?
Look at this, a spider hero. We're all saved.
Hi. Who are you?
Me? I'm just a bartender who does favors for people every now and then. And I've learned that rogue spider bots are dangerous and bad for business. Let me take those off your hands.
Whoa!
Thank you, Spider-Man. We can always count on you to do the right thing.
You're welcome?
And if Miguel comes looking for these, tell him finders keepers.
Wait, who's Miguel?
You see, Delilah here was supposed to be in Across the Spider-Verse, but all her scenes were cut. So this amaze-tastic crossover with those overrated movies makes little sense because it's a character we've never seen before. Another available side mission involves Peter's old friend Howard, a homeless man from the first game with a flock of pigeons that he tends to after the passing of his wife. He wants Peter to find his pigeons a new home while he prepares to go on one last adventure. Once Peter successfully relocates the birds, he returns to Howard to see that he's passed away, now reunited with his wife. This would have been an emotional moment if the cutscene actually worked.
Modern gaming.
We also get the first Flame mission with Yuri, as the two meet up to infiltrate a cultist building and learn more about the Crimson Hour they're obsessed with. Unsurprisingly, the Flame isn't there, but he video chats in to talk like Joe Gacy and tell them that he's located at an old hospital in Astoria. Why does New York have so many abandoned hospitals? You think they'd do something with those? As they fight their way out, Yuri explains that she's been trying to catch the Flame for years, but he always manages to get away. And now he must face the wrath of Wraith. The Wraith Wrath. Pete tracks the hunters to an old foundry where they've locked up Tombstone. He is joined on his infiltration by Harry and his black tentacles. Thank God this doesn't take place in Japan. Things heat up and Harry is weakened by a blaring alarm, but they withstand the heat long enough to defeat the hunters and rescue Tombstone, who also walks right out of the game. Celebration time!
What are you... Hold on. Sorry. Still figuring out how this thing works. Nice design. What do you mean?
Okay, maybe later. Oh yeah, Miles is in this game. While Peter is doing interesting stuff, he's busy finding instruments stolen from a museum. To the surprise of absolutely no one, the rich white guy is the asshole behind it all.
I am shocked. Shocked! Well, not that shocked.
Oh, but if you don't find that intriguing, don't worry, Insomniac has you covered. Because you can instead play as Miles' deaf girlfriend Haley and spray paint some walls. See? It can always get worse. Back with the Spider-Man that actually matters, he gets a call from MJ at Dr. Connors' house, where she has somehow snuck into a hunter van and is unknowingly taken back to their base in an abandoned zoo, where we are subjected to by far the dumbest, most nonsense element of this game, Mary Jane Watson's stealth combat missions. No longer is she just sneaking around, now she's got a Sable International shock pistol and can single-handedly sneak and tase her way through a group of supposedly world-class elite-level hunters.
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
Yeah, there's a line that she was trained by Sable International while she was in Symkaria, but maybe someone should teach the writers at Insomniac the first rule of visual storytelling because I think they could use it! MJ learns that Kraven has been studying the Lizard and that he killed the Vulture and Electro off-screen. Oh, it's a good thing Kraven is so interesting that he can take the place of all these villains. She frees Connors from his cage when Pete and Harry arrive, but they aren't able to prevent him from reverting back to Lizard Brain. Then Kraven stabs Pete with ease and discards him. Way more interested in Harry's black tentacles. Pete will be fine, after all.
Yeah, I'm good. I've been stabbed before.
Remember in 5th grade when you... No, you gotta stay awake, buddy.
Are you f***ing serious? This is Spider-Man we're talking about, and he dies from being stabbed one time? He got stabbed in the first game and walked it off. He gets shot all the time and heals himself just fine. Whatever, it's just a lazy excuse for Harry's tentacle goo powers to transfer to Pete and revive him. However, now that it's off of Harry, he's dying again. So they need to find a way to get it back on him. However, they also have to save the Lizard and defeat Kraven, so they've got a lot on their plate at the moment. Shame there isn't a second Spider-Man to help out. Pete finds bonfires lit around the city and they lead him to a party being thrown to celebrate the new hunt. Luckily, his new goo suit can transform into a more formal suit. How come that isn't an unlockable skin, but Miles dressed as a jazz musician is? Pete's instructed to bring a meal to Kraven's bodyguard Dima, and at no point is it mentioned that Dima is a whole tiger! But Pete feeds Dima the raw meat with a little sleep dart extract to take her out of commission, freeing Kraven's study for exploration. Which reveals that Kraven is dying of cancer and he's looking for his final hunt that will kill him before cancer does. Maybe that will be Spider-Man if the hunters don't beat Kraven to it.
me. You should ice that.
Great recovery. He finds Craven in a nearby church where the tentacle goo's weakness to sound is exploited to Craven's advantage, though Peter escapes with the serum Craven used to turn Dr. Connors, so now they can study it and make an antidote. While science is made, Peter can progress his mission to find the flame, stopping Yuri from killing him and having to fight her in what is actually a pretty easy boss fight, mostly thanks to Peter's swanky symbiotic suit strength and style. Expectedly, the flame escapes during the fight. Back at EMF, they find a way to reverse the lizard's effects, but the serum is unstable, so they have to run it through the particle accelerator. It causes fires all over the building because a particle accelerator will never not cause problems in comic media. As if that heat wasn't enough, the hunters arrive, having tracked their location thanks to Craven the Planner. I will say that the symbiote suit and the powers it gives Pete are the best part of this game. You really feel the enhanced strength. It's addicting to pound people into the ground with your goo.
Do I even have to say it? I'll say it. Pause.
Pete fends off the hunters long enough for Harry to secure the antidote, and they escape the damaged building right as Norman Osborn and the police arrive. Harry's upset his life's work is up in smoke, and the whole "I was just cured a certain death and now I'm dying again" thing. But hey, Miles is here. He's investigating a group of seemingly random people the hunters are tracking. In this side quest, Miles learns that the group of targets are actually all the same person. Their disguise is worn by the Chameleon, who happens to be Craven's brother. You don't fight him or anything, because why put more fun content in your experience when you can just set up the next one? It's what the MCU is relying on at this point. What else is Miles doing to occupy his time while he's not at all important to the plot? Rescuing a robo-dog and giving it to a blind woman? Sure, why not? Alright, now what's the actually important Spider-Man doing? The balancing in this game is as equal as separate but equal. Luckily for the Miles fans, he happens to be closer to the lizard's location, so Peter calls him for help. Miles makes it to the fish market and finds the lizard's skin. Then Pete arrives just in time to chase the fish-juicing lizard and the hunters after him in the first big gameplay section of the game that fans got to see. They stop the hunters, but the lizard gets away, and the stress of needing to find Connors in time to cure him and get the suit back to Harry seems to be getting to Peter.
Sometimes it's just easier to do things myself.
Pete tracks the lizard through the sewers to an underground lab where Dr. Connors was studying weird runes and meteors, along with a strange fragment the tentacles seem interested in. I love this shot where the only way you can see the lizard sneaking up on Peter is the brief reflections in his eyes. That's great stuff. However, I cannot say the same about the ensuing lizard fight. It's just too long for how uninteresting this scrap with a bootleg killer croc is. It goes so long that even Pete gets fed up with him, saying things like, "No wonder your family left you." He manages to make the doctor take his medicine, and when he wakes up, he tells Peter a bit more about his swanky new digs.
It's a fragment of a meteorite that landed outside the city years ago. It's where we found that.
I'm wearing an alien.
We call it a symbiote. It bonds at the subcellular level with its host. And it chose you. Which means it's more dangerous than I could have imagined. We need to call Oscorp. We need to destroy it.
Destroy us? You said it chose me, Doc. It makes me a better Spider-Man.
See, now this is why we need strong borders. All these illegal aliens coming into our country, infecting our superheroes and altering their mind with their evil goo. Pete's had a long day, so he's in no mood to read MJ's story. He just wants some sleep. And honestly, isn't that what we all want? What we don't want is another MJ mission, but life would just be no fun if we always got what we wanted. Pete disappears when hunters arrive at his house, leaving MJ alone with her stupid shock pistol, which she upgrades with a web shooter for more awful nonsense stealth.
What the fuck was that?
Oh, I hate it. Miles arrives and swings after the Black Spider-Man for stealing his steez, while MJ has the dumb fucking idea to get sealed in a tunnel with the rampaging alien that's taken over her boyfriend, and one overdone Akira slide later, that's exactly what's happening. MJ weakens Pete pretty much entirely on accident and finds out that he's actually still asleep and hasn't been in control of his actions all night. Miles fends off the endless hunters until he gets lured into a trap and captured by Kraven, who bursts open the tunnel. MJ runs away from the symbiote when it retakes control of Peter, because somehow it can't keep up with the unstoppable power of one self-insisting white woman. And somehow both the symbiote and MJ escape the tunnel before the hunters can find them. I don't know how, you kinda just have to go with it. Pete wakes up the next morning on a random park bench, and I wondered why no one questioned this, then I remembered this is New York City and he probably stole someone else's bed. Harry calls him, desperate for his life-saving suit back, and as he's heading over there he gets a notification that MJ published the article he didn't read, and it's all about how Spider-Man has been acting very unfriendly recently. I'm sure he'll handle that well.
That suit is changing you.
This suit is the only reason I'm still alive.
Yeah, it's pretty great, isn't it?
Why don't you pop some more pills and say what you're really feeling?
Hey, I can't lose this job.
Your job is to write the truth.
I did.
The truth is, I'm the hero here, not you.
Ah!
Thank you for being his friend.
You're like a son to me.
I am so proud of the man you've become.
If Norman's home lab is filled with genetically mutated spiders whose bites result in enhanced strength and abilities, why not have one of them bite Harry? I get there's risk involved, but Norman attached a fucking alien to him, so clearly he isn't opposed to a little risk. Pete then visits Rio and promises to find Miles, and oh, hey, I found him. He escapes confinement and traverses his new location, emerging in a gladiator fight pit where Martin Lee is waiting for him. For some reason, Kraven wants them to fight to the death. And fight they do, in an actually fun fight that has two phases, with Mr. Negative giving himself the home field advantage in round 2 as he dives into Miles' mind and uses his insecurities against him, though he seems shocked when he finds out that he killed Miles' father. Miles has him dead to rights, but helps him escape instead, furthering the belief that everyone deserves a second chance. Pete then finds Lee at Feast, who tells Pete where he can find Miles, though Pete isn't too keen on giving him a second chance. Also, a voice in Peter's head telling him to kill Kraven is kind of overshadowed by the whole invisible building thing.
Modern gaming.
He arrives at the abandoned mansion, fresh out of fucks to give, and finally takes the fight to Kraven, embracing the new brutality of his new suit. After an intense back and forth, Pete defeats Kraven and is ready to snap his neck when Miles puts a stop to it, because that's not how they do things. Peter doesn't take that too well, and now it's time for the best boss fight in the game as the two Spider-Men use the full extent of their powers against each other, with Miles just eking out the win using the symbiote's weakness, giving Pete an opening to tear it off. And the moment is only slightly ruined by the symbiote disappearing in the cutscene. With Pete back in the right headspace, he apologizes to MJ for his goo-infused rage, and then returns the symbiote to Oscorp. Speaking of goo-infused rage...
Pete, please, you don't understand. Connor said it was...
I saved your life? And you won't save mine? Do you want me to die?
Harry, are you... Oh, God.
Harry.
Oh, poop.
I like the boss fight zoom out fake out with Norman Osborn, but ignore that, we get to play as fucking Venom! This is by far the best part of the game. It makes Peter's symbiote powers feel like slapping someone with pool noodles. I get why every game can't do this, but playing as the villain is a fantastic way to showcase just how powerful they are and why they're such a huge threat to the hero. Venom escapes Oscorp and lands in Times Square, attracting the attention of the hunters. Oh, you're still here? Well, Venom can change that. That's better. Now the actual game can start. Harry flees to his mother's grave where the symbiote manipulates him by using his mom's voice to push their agenda.
We're going to heal everyone.
Pete wakes up to see the wake of Venom's destruction and tries to track him down. However, all he finds is normal New Yorkers infected by the symbiote, a new enemy type that will never not suck going forward. Speaking of sucking, Miles gets the idea to use his weak-ass mixtape powers to weaken the symbiote, using its weakness to certain sound frequencies against it.
Get that nigga off my shit right now.
Miles uploads his mixtape into their concussion burst to create sonic blasts that weaken the symbiote, just in time to locate Venom in the subway, where Miles' mom and Genki just so happen to now be trapped. They find the center of the symbiote nest and plan to destroy it with the sonic blasts, but they need time to sync all them up, meaning they have to defend them until then. It sucks just as much as you'd expect. And why do something annoying once when you can do something annoying over and over and over and over and over again, as symbiote nests have popped up all over the city and they have to be taken down the same way. And if all that wasn't bad enough, the Flames' Crimson Hour is upon us, so Pete has to defuse bombs they've planted across a scrapyard. Yuri arrives and they fight off the Flames' followers, then derail the oncoming train before it crashes into the tankers. However, it takes them both out of commission just in time for the Flame himself to arrive.
And when the Crimson Hour rolls over this earth, it shall bring truth, judgment, and carnage.
Cool moment and all, setting up an iconic Spider-Man villain, but once again, the side mission ends there. It's similar to the identity theft mission in Arkham City where you don't actually fight Hush, they just set him up for the next game, but it worked in that game because there were already so many villains in it, a benefit this game does not share. Pete tries to call MJ to tell her about Harry's tentacular transformation, but he'd rather deliver the news to her himself. As Pete rushes to save her, Dr. Connors informs him that some of the symbiote may still be inside him, though not enough to cause any serious problems. Which is good, because we already have enough serious problems on our plate, we don't need any more.
We are not, Harry. We are.
Guess Harry didn't hear a single thing I just said. Now it's time for some good old-fashioned domestic violence as Pete and Scream Jay viciously beat the crap out of each other while talking about their problems. The symbiote bringing out MJ's frustrations towards Peter's inability to hold a steady job and her having to compromise her morals so they can afford the house. Peter manages to get the symbiote off of her and their strange approach to couples counseling worked wonders as she immediately quits her job in search of something she'll actually enjoy. And after learning that Harry is after the meteorite fragment from earlier, Pete swings over to City Hall, which has been overrun by the symbiote, to help Miles. They get swarmed by the symbiote thanks to Big Chungus over here, but Martin Lee arrives at the last minute to scramble the herd. The symbiote left and Peter is trying to take control of him, and the only way to stop it is for Miles and Martin to work together and venture inside Peter's mind. They cross through the raft where the symbiote has terminated the rest of the Sinister Six, and then to Aunt May's house, which resembles more of a cabin in an old town wrought with mystery. Their witch's cabin key to reshaping their destiny lies in Feast, and Martin's plan is to transfer all of his powers into the symbiote to neutralize it. And Miles has to defend him while he does it, of course. I appreciate Insomniac finding a way to have Peter keep the symbiote powers without being evil. That's pretty cool. And it makes fighting these annoying symbiotes a lot easier, which is very much appreciated.
Wow. Reforming your greatest enemy. Can't say I've ever done that. Maybe MJ was right. Why would the city need me when it has you?
Don't you even fucking think about it, game. Venom gets his hand on the meteorite and begins to transform New York City into his vision, with the whole place being overrun by the symbiote. But that's not even the worst change.
That suit's not an alien, is it?
It's time for a Miles Morales original, you know?
Oh! Ew! Dude! What the fuck?
Boy, if you don't get your ugly...
Shut up with your ugly ass. What you think?
Boy, if you don't get...
This tube of toothpaste looking ass suit that you are forced to wear in the dramatic climax of the story is legitimately nothing more than an Adidas ad. Between selling out the third act of your game and certain games now having pop-up ads, we really need to have a serious discussion about the limits of ads in video games you're already paying $60 to $70 for. At the very least, give Miles a good suit. All it takes is for one guy to be like, oh, I've seen that yee-yee-ass haircut somewhere before, and then Miles' identity is exposed to the world. And why does it have a hood? They talk about how Harry has perfectly bonded with the symbiote and is beyond saving, but they just decide to save him anyway because bad writing. Miles is transported into the shared symbiote consciousness because, I don't really know why. Well, it's because the writers wanted Miles to learn where Venom is keeping the meteorite and couldn't think of a logical path to that outcome. Storytelling tip: don't break the logic of your story to reach the outcome you want. Either change the outcome or take a few steps back and create a stronger path to it. For example, they wanted Miles to discover the meteorite's location so he could relay it to Peter and advise him to wait so they can retrieve it together. However, Miles then also sees that Haley is in trouble, so he has to take care of that first, and Peter refuses to wait for him because the city's all gooed in that. Instead of Miles randomly being transported into a hive mind, why not have Peter get the message instead? Say the anti-Venom symbiote is still connected to the rest, it's just fighting against the rest of it because of Martin Lee. Pete sees where the meteor is and that Haley is in trouble and relays that information to Miles, who saves Haley while Pete finds Venom. It's really not that hard. Anyway, Miles saves Pete from venomous destruction after he sees the meteorite isn't even there, so this whole thing is moot, really.
Thank you so much for wasting my motherfucking time.
But now Pete knows where it is for real this time, and for some reason they have to meet up with average everyday human MJ to create a plan to take down a lethal extraterrestrial goo.
I don't see anything wrong with that.
Their plan to prevent a sequel to World of Goo is quite possibly the dumbest plan I've ever heard. Pete's going to distract Venom while Miles clears out the symbiotes, leaving MJ open to steal the meteorite and bring it to the Emily May Foundation where they'll blow it up with the particle accelerator, theoretically destroying the symbiote hive mind. Pete distracting Venom is fine, Harry still wants him in his plan, but why are you leaving the most crucial step to the only person on the team without any superpowers? The symbiotes are incredibly powerful and both Spider-Men will be distracted, so she's DOA the second one of them even smells her.
Why is everyone so fucking stupid?
If you really need a third person in this, bring Wraith. She's got that giant fucking sickle. It's gotta be better than this dinky ass pistol.
That is not correct.
Oh, I know where I went wrong. I assumed MJ was a realistic character and not a grandstanding bully pulpit of feminist ideology used as a cover for anyone who questions your shit writing. She's fit right in with Captain Karen and Blackton Marvel over in the other universe.
He's out of line, but he's right.
And I now present you the worst section of this game. It's not upsetting like most of The Last of Us Part 2 or boring like Zanky Zero. It just fundamentally breaks the power levels the writers themselves established in such a severe way you can't help but laugh at how ridiculously nonsense it is. To this point, the symbiotes have been presented as the toughest enemies in the game. Pete struggled against them without the anti-venom powers, and even with them he doesn't have an easy time. Whether it's Pete's anti-venom or Miles' causes bioelectricity, they have to use the full extent of their powers just to survive. But Mary Sue Watson over here with her goddamn sonic shock pistol can take one down in 1 to 3 shots, and what I can only imagine is Insomniac's pitch to join the development team for Resident Evil 9, because what even is this segment?
You don't want to be like this. This is disgusting. This is awful in every way. If I could kill it, I would. But I legally can't. But I've considered it.
It feels like Control without the cool powers or explanations for why the main character kicks so much ass, or a dime a dozen indie horror game that's 5 seconds away from revealing this is all an allegory for when my dad beat me as a kid. Most importantly of all, none of this feels like Spider-Man! MJ steals a meteorite and flees while Miles covers her path to the Foundation. While they do that, Pete takes the fight to Harry in their old high school. This certainly has a big fight feel and everything, but there isn't enough here to really set the fight apart. No fun mechanics or anything, just a big attack sponge that you wail on endlessly. Also, I get that the symbiote is preying on Harry's fears and insecurities and manipulating his mind, but why does it think Pete replaced Harry with Miles? The entire game showed Miles being shoved into the background while Pete hung out with Harry. If that's supposed to be a point of conflict between them, it was not demonstrated well at all. Things escalate to another level when Venom realizes Pete is just a distraction and decides to grow wings out of nowhere to recover the meteorite. Holy shit! They arrive at the Emily May Foundation right as Miles and MJ get there. Pete's at a commission at this moment, so he makes the hot tag to Miles to continue this 2-on-1 handicap match. This second phase is actually the most fun one, as it uses both air combat and ground combat together, and the fight goes between all the different floors of the Foundation. It's really fun. Once the proper fight is done, the two spiders try to break Harry out of the symbiote while MJ defends the particle accelerator because of course she does. Pete manages to help Harry rip the symbiote off right as the meteorite explodes, destroying the hive mind completely and evaporating the symbiote. If the symbiote was about to be destroyed the second the particle accelerator destroyed the meteorite, why did they have to get Harry to tear the suit off? All the other people trapped in symbiotes got freed. Anyway, since the symbiote was the only thing keeping Harry alive, he dies almost immediately.
Bye, bitch!
But Miles uses his electric powers to resuscitate him, really begging the question why he's never done that before. And despite the fact that Spider-Man did exactly what Norman wanted him to by saving his son from the symbiote without killing him, he's now pissed at him, and pissed in general.
Get the G serum ready. ASAP.
And to put a bow on this whole thing, the writers, through MJ, draw comparisons between Venom's brief takeover of New York City to the very real COVID pandemic from a few years ago. If you think I'm reaching, her speech ends with this.
We're all ready to return to normal, but what is normal? What if it no longer exists? Over the last half hour, I've talked about how these events have changed me. But what about you? In this ongoing series, I will be talking with people throughout the city, exploring our new behaviors, new routines, new thoughts and feelings. I hope you'll join me on this journey. This has been Mary Jane Watson, and you're listening to The New Normal.
I'm sorry, I'm allergic to bullshit.
Not only do people not want to be reminded of the thing that just happened a few years ago, especially since every writer in the world feels the need to voice their deep take on it when in reality they're echoing the exact same sentiments as everyone else, wrong as they may be, but doing it here makes no sense. The first game in this series had a highly lethal and infectious virus released in the city that led to a city-wide quarantine and lockdown. If you're going to draw comparisons to the pandemic that actually happened, maybe use the actual fucking pandemic you had, not the goo monster that terrorized the city for a couple days. I highly doubt they forgot it happened, seeing as it's the reason Aunt May died. Anyway, everyone's happy and Pete revives the Emily May Foundation in his garage, passing the Spider-Man mantle to Miles as he focuses on an actual job that also won't pay him because it's his company and he's the only employee. And yes, Pete is retired as Spider-Man. Insomniac have specified that Miles is going to be the main Spider-Man going forward.
So for those reasons, I'm out.
Then we get a mid-credit scene where Norman tries to get the Spider-Man's identities from the guy who despises him so much he ruined his reputation and unleashed a killer virus on the city. Surprisingly, he doesn't help him, but says his part in the story is far from over. And to really summarize this whole experience, the credits glitched out. So either Either none of the QA testers watched the credits, or no one cared enough to fix it. Speaking about not caring, there's a post-credit scene as well that introduces Cindy Moon, also known as Silk and Rob Zombie's wife, because that's what Spider-Man 3 needs, another web slinger to mostly ignore.
Oh, I have a bad feeling about this.
The more time I sat on this game after I finished it, the less I liked it. For everything it does better than the first game, there are just as many things, if not more, they do worse. By far, my biggest issue with the game is that they did exactly what I feared they would. They repeated the exact same bad plot structure from the first game. You spend 75% of the game facing a villain you don't give a shit about because you want to get to the actually cool and popular villain that was heavily advertised for the game. The Kraven section of this game blows a fat one. It is unquestionably worse than the Mr. Negative section from the first game. At least that one had enemies with cool powers and a mystery to it. Kraven at the end of his arc is exactly the same as he was at the start. A hunter who wants to die. They try to get as much out of it as they can while they build up Venom in the background, but it's just not interesting. He was nowhere near strong enough to carry a majority of the game on his own. That's not even mentioning that Miles takes a complete backseat during that entire stretch of the game, which, as I remind you, is a majority of it. Even when the focus switches to Venom and Pete and Miles work together more, it's still Peter's best friend they're fighting. The whole symbiote arc didn't involve Miles at all. He was just there because he had to be. This was not Peter and Miles' story as Insomniac advertised. This was Peter's story that Miles was hanging around in like that asshole who refuses to leave your house even though the party ended half an hour ago. The symbiote stuff is done well though. I love how it slowly corrupts Peter and how you physically see it getting more venomous until it makes its way back to Harry. And of course, playing as Venom was a blast. However, it's just the Octavia stuff with less emotion behind it. In Spider-Man 1, we saw Otto irreversibly go from a genius scientist who wanted to do the right thing to a criminal mastermind driven by a craving for revenge and corrupted by the thing meant to save him. In Spider-Man 2, we saw Harry have symbiote powers, lose symbiote powers, then become Venom's puppet until he rips the symbiote off and falls into a coma. It wasn't this big emotional clash between two friends torn apart by their alter egos and a parasitic alien. Harry could have been anyone else and the story would have an equal level of emotion. The only thing that would be different is Venom's twisted idea of healing the world born out of Harry's desire to do the same. On the subject of villains, why are there so few in this game? For what it's worth though, this game is a great counter-argument to anyone who says Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery is better than Batman's. Spider-Man 1 had Kingpin, Mr. Negative, Dr. Octopus, Shocker, Electro, Vulture, Scorpion, Rhino, Tombstone, Taskmaster, Screwball, Silver Sable, Black Cat, and Hammerhead if you want to count the DLCs. Spider-Man 2 had Kraven, Venom, Sandman, the Lizard, and that's it. Mysterio is kind of there, but not really, because it's two people who notably aren't Mysterio, just running a credit card scam using the Mysterio name. Then the Chameleon and Carnage are set up for either DLC or the inevitable Spider-Man 3. On top of that, they also kill Kraven, Venom, Electro, Vulture, and Scorpion. Insomniac says they haven't run out of villains for the third game, but let's see how hollow that rings when the game is largely focused on iconic Spider-Man villain Big Wheel. I'm not saying they shouldn't have killed any of the villains, but they should have made their deaths matter. It's the same problem that plagued the MCU for the longest time, and maybe it still does, I don't know. I stopped watching. Look at the Joker's death in Arkham City. A majority of the game was dedicated to building up to that moment, and it was treated like the earth-shattering event it deserves to be. Then compare that to half of the Sinister Six being killed almost all off-screen and all traces of the symbiote just instantly evaporating. Funny enough, the only death done well was Kraven's, as it further set up how dangerous Venom is. It's really the only thing he added to the story. Also, if the story ends with all of the symbiotes being eradicated with the destruction of the meteorite, how is Carnage gonna appear in the future? Surely that symbiote should have been destroyed too. I've already voiced my displeasure over how MJ is written and how her sections of the game play out, so I won't go over that again. However, the game director said they had the choice to either listen to the fans and scrap her sections entirely, or double down and try to make them better. Seeing as how that's 2 games now where her sections are almost universally agreed to be the worst part of the game, maybe they'll get it through their thick skulls in time to scrap them from Spider-Man 3. The combat was fun as usual, and the added combo moves really took it to the next level, but with the sheer amount of crap on screen at times and the 3 different types of counter indicators that you need split-second reactions time to prepare for, maybe they can afford to slow things down just a bit. And New York felt way more barren this time, which is crazy to think about. The Flame side mission is really the only notable one, because aside from the small personal stories, nothing else happens. I get that Insomniac wanted to tell the Black Suit Spider-Man story, that you need something driving the plot while that's happening, but it could have been done so much better. Have Peter come in contact with the symbiote at the end of the first game, or at the very start of this one. Start building it sooner so you aren't holding off the part of the game people actually want to see until there's only about 2 hours left. And don't artificially restrict yourself to not reusing villains from before. The roster isn't deep enough for that. Use a limited number of notable villains to your advantage. Bring them back and develop their characters more. Or do what the Arkham games did. Take villains that people didn't really know that well, like Victor Zsasz and Professor Pig. Bring them to the forefront, give them more development, make them bigger names. And since this is one of those sequels that is mostly just there to bide time until the finale, let's briefly go over what we can probably expect for the future of this series. I'd imagine the next game is either a Miles Morales 2 or a Silk origin story game, ending with Dr. Octopus breaking out of the raft to further set up Spider-Man 3, in which Miles and Silk struggle to take on Dr. Octopus until Peter is forced to come back out of retirement and help them, just in time for the Green Goblin to show up and for Peter to die in order to defeat him. I hope I'm proven wrong, and they don't go for a three-peat on the same bad storytelling structure, but I feel pretty strong about my prediction. The final score for Marvel's Spider-Man 2 is a 6.5 out of 10. It's stronger than the first game in a number of ways, but it's also weaker in so many ways that shouldn't happen in a sequel. A sequel is an opportunity to improve on what worked and change what didn't, not repeat the same exact mistakes you made before and double down on what people didn't like to create an ultimately emptier experience. I'd say it's a dead tie in terms of quality, but I'm docking half a point since they should have known better. We've really had our ups and downs so far this season with the games I've covered. Some great stories and some that belong in the garbage heap. I want a really good story next. To have a good story though, you need to have a good writer. And I know just the man to call. I hope to see you there.
Continue?
You have been warned.